Hey guys, welcome to Please Rewind Live, episode 1, motherfuckers, which is... Shit, we don't even have a format yet, because the intention of Please Rewind Live was to be more of an interactive entertainment, interactive media outlet, and interview show. So the premise of this show, if you will, is going to be kind of a continuation of what the Box Office Addict live streams used to be, and also was an interview show where, kind of like a talk show, where I hope to get other YouTubers in for interviews, which is similar to the stream I did with David Stewart. I have some guests in mind. David Stewart would definitely be one of them. I'm going to try to get Mahler on here, as I know he's aware of me and we've had minor contact. No, we just started. And I'm also going to get Cordery on here for probably to be the first guest. I'm going to try to set that up for episode 2, and he designed that logo. So Please Rewind Live is going to be the new live stream format of this channel. Box Office Addict may occasionally have a live stream during a special event, like when Rise of the Skywalker comes out, I will most likely do a live stream. The intention of Please Rewind Live is to be able to do reactions to videos you guys want me to react to, talk about movie news, trailers, and just have a discussion with you guys in the chat, basically. That's the idea of the show. It's freeform. There is no particular narrative that we have to follow on these shows. I'd also like to bring back the beef stew with Blood Money at some point, but he's kind of hard to keep in touch with, as I like that as well, so... That's basically it. That's where we're at. I was going to base this episode around Christopher Nolan's Tenet, which the trailer came out a month ago with Hobbs and Shaw, and Nolan will not let this trailer be on the internet. It keeps getting taken down on YouTube. I was wondering if any of you had seen it, because I had seen it. Also, everyone tell me how the audio sounds too, just so I can check that. No, I did not see the Marvel Zombie leaks, but if you could tell me about them, I will surely discuss them. Yes, God's on. Yes, I am back. Yes. Now you guys make sure to all give me super chats for returning. You're welcome. You're welcome, you little bitches. I'm drinking a beer right now. I got off work early. I'm going to be working a lot this weekend, so I thought, why the fuck not indulge in my narcissism and talk to a bunch of people who want to listen to me talk, and I don't have to hear you guys in return. It's kind of like a perfect relationship. If you guys could give me digital blowjobs, this would be a pretty sweet deal. Who are your top 5 rappers? Number 1, Andre 3000. Number 2, if we're going off technical ability, because Kanye West is one of my favorite artists in general, but I know a lot of people don't think he's a very good rapper. So, it's a tough one for me. Who number 2 be? Toothpick from Tribe Called Quest. 3 would be, let's see, who would be 3? I'm sorry, it's just I listen to a lot of hip-hop, so I'm trying to think of who would be my big picks. Probably the Notorious B.I.G. Number 4 would then be Kanye West. And number 5 would be... I mean, I used to be a pretty big Kendrick fan, but I don't like him much anymore. And I like Gambino and a few other people, but I'm trying to think, like, who's a rapper that makes me think, motherfucker, that's some good shit. You know? I don't know. I'm not going to say Tupac. I'm not the world's biggest Tupac fan. Fuck it. Let's just play it safe and, go with someone like, I don't know, Ice Cube. Let's be safe. Yes, I have seen Mr. Robot, and I think it's goddamn brilliant. Mr. Robot is saying that the future is now. That the future isn't something that is going to happen later. It's cyberpunk in a really unique way, in the way that it's saying that we're living in the future right now. We're not waiting for the future. The internet, technology, hacking, the way we are so aware of media and content, and our digital evolution is telling us that we are living in a science fiction story. So Mr. Robot essentially is about that. It gets a little too self-aware and meta for its own good, in particular with the Fight Club references in the first season. But Elliot's always a compelling character, and Rami Malek's performance is always brilliant. I also love the cinematography. There is an energy to the pilot the rest of the first season doesn't keep up, but that guy who makes the whole show, he has amazing... He's kind of like David Fincher, Really good director. I am a fan of Mr. Robot. I don't think it's a masterpiece, but I do like it. A favorite pizza would be a Supreme pizza, probably. I mean, a pizza with both meat and veggies on it would be my shit. Not a big fan of Attack on Titan, although I do think it's a great idea that it's kind of a hidden mech series. You don't realize it's a mech series, but that's what it becomes. But entertaining. The Inn is silent. So, Godzo. My balls itch. Hey, Kyle Reese, I was just talking about Terminator with someone on the phone earlier today, so fuck you. But I was going to talk about Tenet because I watched the trailer, and I was like, this looks fucking interesting. I didn't know Christopher Nolan was making a $230 million movie with... I didn't, like, love the trailer, but I think about that first Inception teaser where you just see the hallway twisting, and that was intriguing. I think with future trailers, we'll be very rewarded with Tenet. I don't think Nolan's showing very much. I think it was more of just an experiment to see if he could keep a trailer that you had to see exclusively in the theater. I did like the cinematography by Hoyt van the Hoytame, or whatever the fuck his name is. I'm probably more excited for Joker, even though I'm a bigger, like, Rambo guy, probably, and Sly, but I kind of felt the last Rambo movie was a great ending, although I think Last Blood is a badass title. But Joker, King of Comedy remake by the guy who did Starsky and Hutch. Who couldn't love it? Sounds like a dream project for me. Anyway, I watched this Nolan trailer, and everybody for some reason thinks it's an Inception sequel because of the font, because it looks like Inception, which I get. To speak of this, I watched a fucking Collider video where they were talking about, is this Inception 2? The font is the same, so it must be Inception 2. Even though Nolan uses a lot of the same shit. I mean, the poster for Inception looks like the poster of the Joker for Dark Knight. So... So the fucking thing is, the Collider crew's sitting around there, and you know, they always say the same fucking thing. What's that guy's name? Christian Harloff? That fucking tool? That company man? That fairy? Who told him he could work with men? That motherfucker. He always says the same goddamn thing. In this fucking horrible podcast that I just came upon, because occasionally they get an interview with somebody I'm interested, like Michael Jai White, where he's like, you know, first time I saw that movie, I didn't like it very much. I hated it. I didn't think it was very good. Then I watched it again, and I really liked it. Now I love it. Now I love it. And, you know, I don't know why I didn't like it the first time. You know, it's just a little different, but now I love it. Every fucking movie with this goddamn guy. You know, first time I saw it, there's some things I wasn't sure about, you know, but now, you know, now it's great. Every time, because he just doesn't want to say anything's negative. He doesn't want to point out something that was bullshit. Like he was talking about Interstellar in this example. And he's like, you know, when I saw Interstellar, I didn't like it. But now I watch it, I love it. Everything makes sense now, I love it. You know, I didn't like the ending before. It's like, dude, Interstellar has a shitload of problems. Please talk about how fucking bad Interstellar is. He's like, no, now I just love it. Inception is one of my favorite movies of all time. And then they always have some dumb fucking bimbo at the table with them that's kind of hot, but only kind of. Like, sometimes they look hotter when they put the right makeup on, but it's usually some chick who's a 6 or a 7 at best. And they're sitting there, and they don't contribute anything to the conversation. They're the token chick. You know, they're the Morgan Webb, if you will. So they sit there, and they're just like, yeah, you know, I really like the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack's really good. Oh, personally, I love the movie. I love the movie. It's one of my favorites, but I can get how somebody doesn't love the movie. But I'm obsessed with it. And this girl that they have in this particular episode about is Tenet an Inception sequel. She says, is that even a real word? She says to them, is that a real word? And they all take it seriously. And one guy gets on his computer and looks up Tenet to make sure when she asked this question. What the fuck? Jesus Christ. I mean, I know some people try to claim Nolan's films are for the more intellectually gifted audience members, that his films are complex, which I don't necessarily agree with. I think they're pretty, you know, easy to follow. They just have good craft. But when you see something like that, you're like, well, maybe there's a point to that because these people are fucking idiots. She's like, is that even a real word? And they sit around. She's like, well, God, I hope it's a sequel to Inception. So, yeah, they do this at all these websites. They do it at Screen Junkies, too. They'll be having a movie fights or a news segment. And whenever they have a girl on there with, like, pink hair, she's wearing a lot of makeup, she's wearing a shirt of, like, Rick and Morty or Chud or something to give herself geek cred. And then they contribute nothing. They play it really safe. They're just there so guys will click on the video and, you know, be like, hey, a girl. Oh, boy. And that's the only reason they're there. They don't contribute a goddamn thing. They're just there for that reason. Also, so they can't be accused of sexism, that it's not a boys' club. This is what's great about Red Letter Media. There's hardly any fucking women. Genius. Genius, I say. So they spend 3 minutes talking about is this a fucking Inception 2 movie, when there's no confirmation of that. Everyone's just going with this. I think some Nolan movies are that way. I don't think that's fair to every Nolan movie. Like, I don't think Dunkirk did that. I don't think Insomnia necessarily does that. I could see that criticism. I think he started to get more on that trend when he made Dark Knight and then Inception and you know, Dark Knight Rises. I don't think Nolan's early films were like that so much. Because characters did used to have smart conversations. Some people would say it's just exposition and all. But if you go back and watch Following, the characters are actually having conversations. If you go back and watch Memento, there's some really interesting exchanges between, especially between Guy Pearce's character and Carrie Moss, I think, and that stuff's interesting. So I don't agree with that all the time. I think Nolan got big, but I think Dunkirk, he went back to basics, and I think, you know. But people think that, oh, Nolan thinks he's this high IQ. Yeah, but Red Letter Media also praised Dark Knight Rises and said it was amazing. So, Nolan's a smart guy. And the science of filmmaking would argue Nolan's intelligent, because the stuff he does technically, you would have to have quite a knowledge in the science behind making movies when it comes to the cameras and the special effects and the sound. So he clearly has a skill in that in an almost engineering way. And he was a history major, so I think Nolan is an educated guy. I don't watch Nolan's films and think he is stupid or anything. I mean, pretentious, probably. Yeah, of course I would live stream. I wouldn't live stream every day. If I had 100,000 subs, I would live stream more because of the super chats. But I wouldn't do it every day. No, that'd be crazy. I have other things to do with my time, you know, besides live streaming every day. Now, I would probably do it a couple times a week, but I don't think I'm ever reaching 100,000 subs. I think I've accepted this channel is going to continuously be stagnant despite what I do. Thought on Chapter 2's reception being slightly lower than 1 on it. Now, this is interesting shit. All right, I'm going to finish talking about Tenet, and then we'll talk about It Chapter 2, and then we can end on Dave Chappelle's Sticks and Stones, because these are all worth discussing. All interesting topics that deserve a series of videos. And I'm just going to talk about it all here, because fuck it, it's Please Rewind Live. That's what we do. This is where you get to hear all the shit that you don't get in the videos. So, okay, anyway, the theory is that Tenet deals with time travel, which Nolan films have dealt with time before. Almost all of his films have dealt with time. And that David Washington's character has this ability to travel through dimensions or time, or change time or arrange it, almost like that game Life is Strange. There's the scene in the trailer is he's by a bullet hole, and then he starts walking down to another bullet hole, but it looks like we're seeing a shot that is starting over. And it's like happening again, but it seems like a different shot. And then we see a montage of like a SWAT team, him fighting a guy, and then him breathing with a mask. This is Nolan's most expensive film. This is a $225 million original movie. His biggest budget, no, it's his second most expensive film. His biggest film was Dark Knight Rises, but you got to think what the cast got paid. This has Robert Pattinson in it, who I'm all on board with after Good Time. Which, by the way, the Sadfie Brothers Uncut Gems is coming out with Adam Sandler later this year. Can't wait. So you see this shit, and It looks exciting. It looks visually very exciting. Only for the sense that if he's going back to stuff he did in Inception or Memento, and he's making a blockbuster again, even though Dunkirk was a blockbuster, but if he's going to make a big movie again, and I hope that he learned a lot from his restraint in Dunkirk, this could be a film that mixes the best of both worlds with Christopher Nolan, where we get the scale of a lot of the stuff we like about some of his movies. And then we also get one of his more interesting screenplays. So yeah, some people think it's about secret agents traveling through time. And even Tenet is a palindrome, so it's the same forward and backwards. So that's an interesting thing. So could this, is this movie going to make like $1 billion, or is it going to be a big failure? But I will say I support a movie getting this kind of budget from a filmmaker writing an original screenplay, even if he's going to have influences. So let's talk about the reception of It Chapter 2. If you would have asked me a few months ago, or even on the release of the trailers, I would have guessed that the Chapter 2 of It by Andy Muschietti, that this film would be really well reviewed. Like, those trailers looked great. Bill Hader's in it, James McAvoy. I would have thought like 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, or at least like 85%, like the first movie, 75%. It's getting like mixed positive reviews, and apparently the biggest criticism is that it's too long at 3 hours, which does seem indulgent. Even the first film was too long at 135 minutes. So there's that issue. And the fact that it's, I don't know, I hear that he tries to up the scares, and that you think with 3 hours there'd be more character development. Because when I originally read it was 3 hours, I was like, well, shit, maybe this movie will have a lot of drama and character development and stuff like that going on, and it'll be an engrossing film all around. I was like, this might be a great movie. Now I'm reading about it, and I'm like, oh, shit. We're at this place now. Because a lot of people think that the adult parts of the novel are the weakest, and I agree with that to an extent, but I just think it's all the cosmic shit and crazy shit Stephen King does that's the weakest. I don't think the idea of the adults going back 30 years later and looking back at their past and being traumatized by their youth is a bad idea. I actually think it's rather brilliant in a lot of ways. But the issue does seem to be the miniseries had a good structure. Making a movie about the kids solely focused on them, then doing the adult movie with kid flashbacks and making it 3 hours. What are you gonna do? It's probably a tough screenplay to write. I don't think Cary Fukunaga got enough credit for what they took from his screenplay. They did not throw that screenplay out. They used a lot of it. And he also set the tone for that. You could argue he kind of came up with the original idea for Stranger Things in a sense, because his premise, the way he wanted to tonally make the film, was very similar to what it became. And I will try to get Jeff from World Class Bullshitters on the show. That's what I want the show to be eventually, is a show with guests where we just come on and talk. This is going to be a very classic YouTube live stream where it's just people bullshitting and reacting to things. And, we'll talk about the new shitty Patrick Willems video, that kind of stuff. That's the hope, is to build up kind of a roster, my Justice League, if you will. I am surprised by the reviews. I thought this would get better reviews. I thought that, they had enough time to work on it, but like I said, they put so much time developing that first film. I think maybe they didn't have enough ideas to get a screenplay that was really there, and I think the director probably got a little bit too ambitious because of the success of the first film. I mean, he made the most successful horror film financially of all time. These days, Richard Linklater, David Fincher, Pedro Almodovar, Park Chan-wook, really all the South Korean gods, the Sadfi brothers. I'm very excited about anything they do. And outside of that, I mean, it would be, some filmmakers everybody likes for the most part. Like, I like Steven Soderbergh. But the ones that I'm really excited about, new directors, it would be the Sadfi brothers, Cary Fukunaga, Hiro Murai, if he would get into making movies. I would have also preferred him directing the movie, but that's not what we got. Luckily, a brilliant cinematographer shot the film, and it did look good. So I don't know what happened with it, Chapter 2, where it just... I don't know. I don't know, maybe the producer should have stepped in and cut the movie down by like 40 minutes. Probably could have helped. Let Bill Hader work on the screenplay. Have you watched Barry? It's fucking amazing. Chuck D. Oh, dude, Chuck D. I mean, that's a problem. It's just off the top of my head, it was tough. Because I think of like 1,000 people. Because I'm a big Common fan. I really like Common stuff. You know, I like a lot of... the Beastie Boys I'm a big fan of. So it's tough. You know, it's like, well, how do you pick that? I mean, I know Andre 3000 is my favorite rapper of all time. Like, just if you're just talking rap ability and what he does, I mean, he's my guy. And it's the most pleasant to my ear. But yeah, the Gorillaz. I mean, there's a lot of shit that I love that has hip hop in it, so it's tough. That I would not say that's a definitive list. I was just trying to think of people off the top of my head. I would have to see. I'd have to write it down. That would be easier. Like write down 30 and then pick from there. Yeah, Tyler the Creator, I'm not big on. You made me think. There's this director. I think his name is Coconada. He made that movie I reviewed, Columbus, which I'm a big fan of. I would like to see what he does with his career. Very talented filmmaker. Movies you're most excited for this year? Uncut Gems, by far. I think it's going to be my favorite movie of the year. Steven Soderbergh has a film coming out on Netflix I'm excited about. Trying to think. There's some movies I'm pumped to see. They're just not coming to me right now. I know there's a few. I mean, to be fair, this whole year I haven't been that excited. Man, why? There's so many reasons why I don't like Peter Jackson's King Kong. I mean, I have the same complaints everyone else does, man. I mean, you know, everyone's had the complaints or positives on... I think everyone pretty much agrees. You know, I think everyone agrees that the people who don't like it aren't wrong, and I think the people who say like it, because the positive things people say about the movie are true. It does look great. It is a great throwback. Peter Jackson was doing throwback stuff like that in all of his movies. The Lord of the Rings films have a lot of Ray Harryhausen and Jason and the Argonauts and King Kong in them. I mean, Return of the King has segments that feel just like those movies with modern special effects. So, everyone who enjoys it as an action-adventure movie and as a spectacle, they're not wrong. But the people who also complain about the pacing, the slow-motion shots, which are ridiculous and overused... Peter Jackson seemed a little exhausted post Lord of the Rings and maybe didn't get a perfect story structure. The 45 minutes you spend on the boat with these characters that aren't that interesting, they're okay, but they're more like cardboard cutouts of stereotypes, which works much better in the 1933 film, which is shorter than a 3-hour film where we really need to get to know these people. The dinosaur chase scene where a guy drop kicks a raptor, it's cartoony. Really no issues with Kong. I would say my biggest issue with it, if despite specific things I have an issue with, like, no, Jimmy, I was in the army, Jimmy, run, Jimmy. I would say mainly is that I find the film to be very lifeless, is that I think it rings hollow emotionally and has some kind of tone that makes me very uncomfortable. It shows what happens. To me, it shows what happens when you get the lovely bones, or as opposed to heavenly creatures. Peter Jackson, what he does with his movies, if you take that tone, like The Frighteners, if you turned it up a little bit more, or he went a different direction, like any of his films could have this issue, it'd be something very uncomfortable to watch. And because a lot of his camera work and the way he makes his movies is very strange, and his style necessarily wouldn't work if he didn't get it perfectly right, which it makes Lord of the Rings so impressive. But I think it's because he had that source material. But I think pretty much every Peter Jackson film since Return of the King I've had major issues with. King Kong, the issues I have with it are a lot of the same issues I have with the Hobbit trilogy. And not as much Lovely Bones, that's just horrible. But I just think it's a very... shallow, boring movie that's very dull, even despite its visual grandeur and beauty. I'm not entertained while watching it, and it's a slog, and I find it kind of terrible in every way. I don't know if The Irishman could be... I mean, there's two ways. This is what's going to happen with The Irishman. Either it's going to be great, and it's going to be a return to form for Scorsese, whatever the fuck that means, or it's going to be a disaster where the de-aging effect doesn't work. It's trying too hard, and Al Pacino and De Niro just can't bring it like they used to because, quite frankly, they haven't in a long time. Fully Cooley, the original series, yes, is definitely a masterpiece. It's one of the greatest coming-of-age stories, while also being one of the greatest mech shows, while also being one of the best uses of subtext I've ever seen, that using the mech stuff for teenage maturity and adolescence and sexuality and all that. I not really with Alfonso Cuarón. I wish he could have directed another Harry Potter film, but I actually think David Yates did mostly what Alfonso Cuarón would do. Even people who don't like the David Yates films, like if you watch Half-Blood Prince, I think that's what Alfonso Cuarón would have done with the filmmaking and the cinematography. And I really like Deathly Hallows 1 and 2. I get Order of the Phoenix. Some people are mixed on in Half-Blood Prince, but I think David Yates kind of went back to what I mean, I love Prisoner of Azkaban, and it's like a Miyazaki film, but let's not deny that he had the benefit of adapting one of the best books of the series. That's a great fantasy novel, children's fantasy novel. And the whole hook of it, the Prisoner of Azkaban, and then the emotional investment you get from characters like Lupin. And when you get to the ending and you find out that Sirius is his uncle and all that. I mean, because all the Harry Potter novels are mystery books. They're like Hardy Boys disguised in a fantasy universe, and I would say the best mystery of the whole series is in that book. So, you know, he had but there's flaws in Prisoner of Azkaban. Harry fainting so much is stupid. There's some comedy that doesn't work. Yeah, maybe me and Blood Bunny will talk about it, but I think, no, I think they did a fine job. I know they wanted Guillermo del Toro. Maybe I don't like that David Yates did so many. That he did, like, yeah, Tenet does have a budget of $225 million. I don't like that he has so many films under his belt, and I wish he had not directed the Fantastic Beasts films, probably. But I'm a fan of David Yates. I think he did a good job. But I also like what Mike Newell did with Goblet of Fire. I like Goblet of Fire a lot, even though now that's the most hated Harry Potter movie. When that movie came out, it was like claimed and everyone loved it, and now I read all over across the board it's the worst one, and I still really like it. So I don't know. So no, I don't like. And also, if Alfonso Cuarón had stayed on, we probably wouldn't have got Children of Men, which I love living in a world where Children of Men exist. So, it would have been nice if he could have directed, you know, like a 3-hour version of Order of the Phoenix. You know. I mean, it would have been nice to have more. It would have definitely been cool if he had done Fantastic Beasts. I would have been interested in that if he had done his own Harry Potter franchise and built his own world. Well, there you go, Godzo. There you go. We need to talk about the Dave Chappelle special, but I'm gonna see what. I mean, fuck a Boba Fett movie. Who gives a shit? I'm done with the movies. I'll watch The Mandalorian. No, I never did a Roma review, but I'll just, you know, I don't know if you guys know, spoilers. I didn't like it very much. I didn't like Roma at all. I thought I would love Roma. I watched the trailers and I was like, shit, this looks like a masterpiece. And then the reviews came out and I was like, oh, okay, it is a masterpiece. Then I watched it and I was like, oh, shit. This is like my least favorite film of his, or it's up there as one of his weakest films. And I'm a big fan of his. I mean, I love Children of Men, and I love A Little Princess, and I love And Your Mother too. Because I forget how to pronounce it in Spanish, and I love fucking Prisoner of Azkaban. I mean, and the set piece parts of Gravity I like, but I also have a lot of issues with Gravity. But I'm a fan of his work. Thoughts on Snape being a good guy twist scene in the last movie when he says always? Oh yeah, that scene's great. Yeah, that whole montage. Yeah, Roma's boring. I hate to say it, but the way you think as an art film being this pretentious black and white, boring film, you think about that, and I always say that's not true. You watch art films, they're not that way. People make that shit up. Then you watch Roma, and it's like, man, this is like the stereotype people talk about with art films. To me, at points, it felt like a parody of those kind of movies, because its story did not merit the film itself, even though I wish it had. Because I think Miyazaki was an influence on that movie. I think about the way that the whatever the fuck they're called, the things from Azkaban, the way they show up, and the train attack, the Quidditch sequence, the bus, all of that's very Kiki's Delivery Service to me. All of that is but you know, I don't know. It's a tonal thing. I feel it in there. The music score, it reminds me of Kiki or Castle in the Sky or Totoro and stuff like that. Because I know John Lasseter was really influenced by Castle of Cagliostro, and so was Spielberg, and I could see Alfonso Cuarón. Because honestly, Miyazaki as a filmmaker, Harry Potter at its best is C.A. Lewis-esque, and Miyazaki captures the C.S. Lewis-like quality in his films, and could have adapted something like Narnia or Harry Potter. I had a dream once of Harry Potter in Miyazaki's animation style, and it was kind of like, it was one of the best dreams I've ever had. I remember everything about Grand Theft Auto 4. I remember it coming out. My parents left when I was a teenager. They went on a vacation, and they left me with some money to buy food. And I went to the store that night, and I bought Grand Theft Auto 4. And I came home, and I bought a shitload of pizza rolls and a case of Mountain Dew. And I pulled the couch up to the TV in the living room and a coffee table in between it. And I put the case of Mountain Dew on the coffee table, and I made like 50 pizza rolls, and I played Grand Theft Auto 4 the entire time they were gone. That's the first thing I remember about Grand Theft. And I remember having the cell phone and being excited about that. Oh, that's like John Williams' last great score, is the score for Prisoner of Azkaban. I'm probably not going to watch the new Terrence Malick film, no. Of course I'm excited for season 2 of The Boys. Yes. Very excited. I mean, I don't. It depends, you know. I mean, I agree they haven't had a great straightforward narrative, but GTA's taken on more of a meta aspect as it's going on, and GTA 5 returns to Grand Theft Auto being more of a game, and that's what's kind of was so fun about it. And I think why it caught on the way it did was because it was a game, and it was about gameplay and having fun, and it was less about those other things. I think Roma is what an upperclassman thinks being a poor domestic worker is, instead of an authentic portrayal of poor domestic worker. That's an interesting point of view. What do you like most about The Boys personally? Its commitment to its tone and what it is, and what the idea is, staying very, having clarity in the idea of what they're trying to say and present, and in the way they're trying to present it, with these characters. I think that it's so clear and bold in its vision of what it is, and it's realized in what it is what I like most about it. I watch it and I immediately understand what it is. There's a lot of Tree of Life that's good. I like the whole part with Brad Pitt. I like everything. If that movie was just Brad Pitt, the Brad Pitt family stuff when Sean Penn's a kid, and it didn't have any of the outer space stuff, and it didn't have any of the future stuff with Sean Penn, maybe a little bit, I actually think that would be a pretty good movie, and it would be his best film since The Thin Red Line, which it still is in a lot of ways, but I think it would be one of his tightest, best films. Like, if that was a 90-minute movie, and it had, because, you know, people forget about this. Days of Heaven and Badlands were short. They weren't long movies. Then Terrence Malick decided he was going to make epics, and now he just makes music videos. But if Tree of Life had just done the young boy growing up family with, you know, the portrait of this religious background and masculinity, and then the mother's nurture, I mean, those parts of the movie I enjoy, and I think are really entertaining. I don't like The Witch as much as some other people, but Lighthouse does look very good. Yeah, The Boys, I guess that's something too, that it did make superhero movies feel new again, and that was kind of surprising. Oh, Final Fantasy IX is also one of my favorite games as well. I mean, it's not Chrono Trigger, but it's great. It would be dumb to say there was a Miyazaki influence because, duh, all the Final Fantasy games. I mean, Chocobos come from Nausicaa. No, I mean, the space stuff looked cool. I'm not acting like the special effects and all. I mean, it was like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, I just think there could have been less of it. I do like it. Maybe if there was a beginning montage and an ending montage, and the movie was shorter, I think, yeah. But I don't hate it. There's just like parts with dinosaurs and stuff like that I'm not a big fan of. Even though I think it looks good. I actually don't hate Tree of Life. I don't know if people think I dislike Tree of Life. I think it's okay. I just hate Terrence Malick movies after that film. Every movie he made after that I think is horrible. I mean, I'm not a Terrence. I just wish Terrence Malick would let somebody write a good screenplay for him and he could direct it, because he's such a brilliant visualist. He won't stop writing these. Just at this point, screenplays that are just so repulsive in a sense that he's just him writing his poetry and pushing his Christianity on you, where you really got in the heads of the characters in Badland. You really got in Martin Sheen's head, and you really got in the heads of the characters in Days of Heaven, especially that little girl. And you kind of get swept up in that world and the period of it. And I just don't think he's ever been able to capture that again. He's still doing the same style he always did, but it just worked better before. It works better in Badlands than it does in something like The New World, even though The New World's a beautiful movie. Yeah, Song for Song should have been great. When I read about that movie years ago, I was so excited. I was like, this sounds amazing. And To the Wonder and all those films, and they're all horrible. No, Oliver Stone will never make a movie like Platoon or JFK again, or like Talk Radio, or like Wall Street, or like Salvador, or any of those movies. Oliver Stone will never make a good movie again. I have no problem saying that. He's done. I realized that when I saw Alexander when it came out, and it's the worst movie I've ever seen. And I burned a DVD of that film. I paid my friend $5 for his copy of Alexander, the director's cut. I took it outside, and I burned it. And to me, that is the death of Oliver Stone. So there you go. Oh man, SF Debris, man, that's old school. I forgot he still does reviews. I love that guy so much. I don't watch him anymore. I love that guy. I used to watch him and Confused Matthew. Confused Matthew was like an influence on me. Even though I kind of fucking hate him now, but yeah, SF Debris, his content is amazing. That guy is so... He should be on a podcast with Mike or something from Red Letter Media. You're gonna make a movie about no feelings and war. Cool, man. I dig it. It's gonna be like Jarhead. Yes, you should watch Badlands to get into Malick, yes. And then you should watch Days of Heaven. And then you should watch The Thin Red Line. And then if you want, you can watch Tree of Life. And then I would say watch YouTube clips of his other movies. Would be my advice. Badlands, I would say just go out and buy. I didn't know that Criterion released Hedwig and the Angry Inch. I was in Barnes & Noble today, and I was like, God fucking damn it. Yeah, oh yeah, I'm tired of Nazis too, man. Like, they do work visually, but I'm done. Yeah, over the important movies. I know, every movie that has, like, an LGBT character or a message. I mean, I made that video years ago, the critic bias on Rotten Tomatoes, and critics having a bias politically. And I made that years ago. I think it was called The Virtue Signaling of Film Critics. But you'll notice this, when a movie comes out with something progressive in it, or a TV show, it gets like rave reviews across the board. And critics write these reviews, and all the reviews mention that aspect of it, while not praising the film so much itself. And then they'll just shit on this other stuff. And then you go watch those movies they praise, and you're like, well, this isn't that great of a movie. And it happens more and more now than it ever has. It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah, LA Confidential would kill on Criterion. Bears. I say the momentum's on the Bears right now, right? Bears got a good team. Some people are saying The Joker is a masterpiece. I've read some other reviews where people say you could tell that Todd Phillips has never done drama, and that, you know, Joaquin Phoenix actually goes too far. I'm a Todd Phillips fan. I don't like the Hangover movies, but I love Starsky and Hutch and Road Trip and Old School. And I actually think he's a very talented filmmaker. And I always said that. I think Starsky and Hutch is kind of great. I think it's an underrated classic. And I think Road Trip's really good. And even the first Hangover is really well made. I always thought he was a good filmmaker. War Dogs was okay. But you know, it's what are you doing? It's a Scorsese knockoff. That's what it is. Some people think Jarhead's great. I think Jarhead's good. I think I like Jarhead a lot more than some other people. I think what's interesting about it is that it's one of the only war films that's showing you people being bored, having downtime while they're in a war, and not just this constant fear, but this constant sense of like, what are we doing? What's the meaning to a lot of this? Which is what the movie's about. Troy's okay. It has some fun action scenes. There's some nice, you know, Brad Pitt's hamming it up. It's an okay movie. Like, it's watchable. That's about it, though. It's a very mediocre film. Yes, I've played The Witcher 3. Yeah, Jarhead's all about being bored. That's what I like about it. And I think that's why it had a good opening week, and the trailers made it look like an action movie. They played Jesus Walks in the trailer, and they showed Jake Gyllenhaal shooting up to the sky. Yes, I watched Mr. Robot. But then the movie isn't like that. Sam Mendes makes a very, like, slow movie that's kind of just about these dudes hanging out for the most part, and everybody sort of... I think people, like, it got kind of mixed reviews, and I think people went to go see it, and it dropped off at the box office because they were like, this is boring. And I hope with time people start to appreciate Jarhead. That it's a good little movie. And that whole run, I mean, I was a big Sam Mendes fan. I love Road to Perdition. I love that movie. I did not like Revolutionary Road and Away We Go very much, but I like Skyfall. I am a fan of Sam Mendes. I hope 1917's good. Yeah, I saw the trailer for The Witcher show on Netflix, starring Henry Cavill. And his mouth looked normal. No, I have not seen the Frankenstein Chronicles. That sounds fucking ridiculous, though. The Frankenstein Chronicles, man. What the fuck? Did I like what? The Witcher show on Netflix? The trailer? It looked okay. I wish we got a better sense of the story and characters. The books are good too. I like The Witcher. But I don't know. I didn't get a sense of tone or of character from it. What makes this show unique from other fantasy shows? Because the production value doesn't cut it anymore. Even the new Dark Crystal has great production value. Evangelion is both genius and pretentious at the same time, and it's genius because it's pretentious, and it's pretentious because it's genius. Could Donnie Darko and Mr. Robot be classified as superhero entertainment disguised as drama? Yes, they're both influenced by comic books. Elliot very much feels like a comic book character. That's a very astute observation, because when I first started watching Mr. Robot, all I kept saying was, this feels like a fucking comic book. The whole thing. You could see the panels in your head. You could see how Elliot would be drawn. I think about Brian K. Vaughan comics, and it reminds me of that. It reminds me of, like, Y the Last Man, and even the dialogue. And if the artwork was sort of like that, or this comic I used to read, Chew, I think Mr. Robot totally would have been a comic book. Even the font that pops up and the way it comes up looks like a comic book page when you see the font at the beginning. And I kept reading. I kept watching it like, man, this would be a kick-ass comic book. In fact, I think I would like it even more as a comic book. I think a lot of things about it, if they were in a comic, would be awesome. And Donnie Darko, we know Richard Kelly was influenced by comic books. So I do think that, I don't think directly as much as Unbreakable, because Unbreakable is about a superhero. I think in more ways you could say that they're influenced by comic book storytelling. And that's partially related to the superhero genre. I mean, I like The Deer Hunter. I don't structurally I have issues with it because the first hour is on that wedding, and then you get 30 minutes of Vietnam, and it's amazing, and then it becomes this Russian roulette movie. But when Robert De Niro goes back home, and he's the one that goes back home because you think it's going to be Christopher Walken. He kind of feels like the lead, and De Niro's performance and that coming back home from war and that drama, that stretch of the movie really is beautiful and poignant and has some really amazing scenes. And when he doesn't shoot the deer, it's really powerful, and the ending is. So I do like the movie. I've seen it quite a few times. It just suffers from a lot of the issues some other 70s movies do, where people are like, oh, it's more about the characters like a novel. It's like, no, some of these movies just don't have tight editing because it wasn't there yet. And people kind of give an excuse for some of those films that, could have had another run in the edit. I'm not saying that's true for all films from I love the 70s. That's my favorite decade of movies, but occasionally you'll see a movie and you're like, yeah, this could have better pacing. And The Deer Hunter is really not a pacing thing. It's just a structural thing. I think they didn't focus on the right things, and they wasted time on things that we didn't need to waste time on. And so it's a sum of its parts movie instead of a collectively really engrossing, well-told story. I don't know. They'll probably all be successful. At this point, would you bet against Disney and the MCU? I wouldn't. I'd say they're all going to be successful. Personally, that's what I get. Yeah, I mean, I like Superman a lot too. Superman 1's an amazing movie. Anyway, let's talk about Sticks and Stones. So going back to the bias with critics and where we are politically, I guess this was inevitable that this was going to happen with Chappelle, who I've been fascinated by since the beginning of his career. And he has the best episode of Inside the Actor Studio. He has some of the best stand-up specials I've ever seen. And his recent stuff, I didn't laugh as much as I thought I would when he came back to Netflix, but there's that one, the one called The Bird or something, where he kind of tells that parable. He tells that story about Pimp, that book, and then he relates it to why he left the Chappelle Show, and it's about capitalism. And that was so brilliant, that 10-minute story he tells, that was chilling. And then this new special, I think it's not the strongest of the bunch, but he comes out and it's funny. I mean, it's a funny hour. And then there's all these reviews. But this happened with his last few specials. I read the reviews for his specials before this, all of them. And outside of the first two that he did, but the other ones after that, there was a lot of negative reviews. And it was all about how he reacted to Me Too. It was these fucking clickbait websites. There was the Gizmodo type websites. And they were criticizing him and how he addressed Me Too and race and Hollywood. And then this special, it was the same shit. It was the same, he's out of touch because he made transgender jokes. He's out of touch because he made... Basically, I think they're annoyed that we all made these jokes about transgenders and equality. I mean, the whole basketball bit he has about LeBron James. I said that years ago. Ben Shapiro said that. It was verbatim, the basketball analogy when it comes to equality. So you could even argue a lot of his material was a little outdated, making fun of the whole trans thing in this generation, because we've all done that for years. But Chappelle finds an original way to kind of do it that's really funny. The whole way of him breaking it down as an alphabet. Well, the T's hate me now. But it was just another really solid Dave Chappelle special. I mean, Dave Chappelle's always good. He's kind of mastered storytelling. I wouldn't even say he's mastered comedy as much as he's mastered storytelling, and so he's able to be funny because he can tell a story and he knows when it has a funny beat. And it's just so weird how the reviews are shit, and now it's this opposite thing we've seen. It's weird when no, I know, I'm just saying, isn't it weird? I would have never thought Dave Chappelle would make a similar point to Ben Shapiro. It's very odd to see a comedian saying those things that a few years ago. I don't think the Hitman games are goofy, no. I mean, they can be. But what video game isn't goofy at points? Chappelle, though, doing all that humor, and then... Now, it's funny because, yeah, let's think about this. When Ghostbusters came out, critics kind of gave it a pass, and then it got a lot of negative online attention, and then they tried to say everyone was a racist and sexist. That happened with Last Jedi, And this happens all the time. People pick up these things. So Chappelle's gotten more of a boost from this because of the criticism, because they shit on him and tried to say he was out of touch and you know, and it was being inappropriate. That just gave him this new boost. Yeah, he's reaching a Norm Macdonald play. I think he always had Norm Macdonald like talents as a stand-up, and I think he does things Norm can't do. I think he's much better at sketches and coming up with characters. Although Norm is still my guy. I mean, I love that we live in an era where Norm Macdonald's worshipped on YouTube. Thank you, internet. But yeah, everyone complaining about it's crazy because now it has like all these high ratings and people are defending it and it's given it more popularity and people are making. If I was smart, I would have made a YouTube video about it. I mean, you see these videos are getting like 300,000 views where they're just like defending Dave Chappelle. And it's funny because it almost makes it like he's on our side, like he's you know, like fuck the establishment, you know, fuck the neolibs and all that. But really, it's just him doing what he always did. He always had nuance in his comedy and his points that he was making within his comedy. So, you know, I don't know what their deal was, but going after him was foolish because it's just reinvigorated him and given credence to them being hacks and them having the bias and being out of touch. It just gave credence to that and boosted up his special and him to an audience that, you know, is very vocal and passionate on the internet now is supporting Dave Chappelle. And so it's the funny thing about it. And they can't say that we're racist or sexist for liking him because he's a black man. You know, it puts them in a weird position. Are they going to go after him and try to claim that he doesn't, you know, understand, you know, because they always have to blindly defend anyone that's, you know, not a white male, and he's not. So this isn't like Louis C.K. Dave Chappelle didn't jerk off in front of any women, so they were able to take him down, you know? I don't think they have anything on Chappelle. So what are they supposed to do? I mean, he left Hollywood because he was a smart guy. He knew they were trying to pimp him and how they were trying to use him, and they didn't realize they were dealing with a guy that knew that I'm providing all this stuff for you with my talent and this money, and you're trying to control me. They were trying to put him on medicine, and they started the rumors that he was crazy. He's just a sharp dude. He saw the bullshit. He saw the game of it. And it explains a lot of those people in Hollywood. There's that part in the special where he says, what if the Weinstein stuff was just the beginning of it? What if it's way worse than that? He's like, that'd be pretty messed up, wouldn't it? I don't know if that was a hint of things that he saw when he was really growing in the industry. And now he's making the money on Netflix and doing the specials, and he's back again, and he took that time away. And it's inspiring that you could have integrity like that and come back later as an artist and make the money again and stay true to yourself. And he didn't really have to ever sell out in the traditional sense. I both love and also think Andy Kaufman's very overrated. But the whole Chappelle thing is just, yeah, it's fucking hilarious. Because it's just another thing the internet's jumped on to attack the mainstream media and a lot of these journalists, as they like to be called, which are just glorified bloggers without a sense of humor. And it's just destroyed them even more. And I mean, this has been happening the last few years. I mean, it happened with PewDiePie in the Washington Post, or the Wall Street Journal, my bad, the Wall Street Journal. Same thing here. Dave Chappelle made fun of transgender people. He said the F word, you know, the new F word. And, you know, he said some raunchy stuff. And so now he's a bigot too, even though they used to praise this guy for being so revolutionary. I like Redline. I'm a huge Bill Burr fan. I've been compared to Bill Burr a lot, especially when I used to do Box Office Addict. I used to hear a lot of Monday morning podcast references. And then I could talk like Bill Burr because I can get animated and loud like him. Big Bill Burr. I mean, his last few specials haven't been that great, but I'm not going to knock Bill Burr. He's been brilliant on talk shows. He's had brilliant specials. And he's been fucking amazing in movies and television shows. I mean, I'm a huge fan of him. And he's one of the best podcasters of all time. I mean, my influence on when Terrible Lizard edits my videos, I think we're both kind of inspired by that channel where that guy edits Bill Burr's podcasts. Because that's how me and Terrible Lizard kind of started to meet, was he would take audio from my live stream I would do and then edit it together, and it's very similar to those Bill Burr edits. I can't remember the name of that channel where it's like a boss, but it's just a rant that comes out of nothing, and you turn it into a visual comedic experience that's sort of an essay at the same time. And that's kind of the dynamic me and Terrible Lizard have. And so I would say Bill Burr is a direct influence, even if it wasn't intentional at the beginning. I see his success, and I think, well, maybe I could do something like him. You know, maybe I'm not good enough to, you know, win this Oscar, but maybe I'm good enough to you know, kind of do a podcast like Bill Burr, and then, you know, maybe one day do stand up and be on talk shows. I'm not saying I'm Bill Burr, but uh, he showed me a lot. He gave me a lot of confidence in, like, oh yeah, you can go in those directions with how you tell stories, or that you could be pontificator, that you could be more of a thinker, than you don't have to necessarily lean on facts. Even though I do a lot of research, but that you can kind of just try to come to these ideas in a very relatable way, and then make them ridiculously funny through exaggeration and I don't know, but it's hard to, like, break down everything about Bill Burr. Any great obscure animated movies to recommend? I'm trying to think obscure. Belladonna of Sadness, which I don't think had an official release. Criterion should release that. It's from the early 70s. Look that up. Although I will warn you, it's very, very hardcore and kind of a softcore porno. It's fucked up, but very interesting movie. And I would like to see somebody do something. Although I guess Takahata sort of did something like that with some of his movies, but the style of what they do with it is, I think it's called Belladonna of Sadness. I could be wrong about the pronunciation of the part. I haven't watched enough Sam Hyde stuff. From what I've seen, I haven't liked it very much. I also don't like John Mulaney as much as everyone. My favorite anime, trying to think, what is my favorite anime? My favorite anime movie is Spirited Away. My favorite anime show, I mean, that's fucking tough. You know, because it's funny, me and Blood Money, he's just been getting into anime. So he's been calling me. He's like, dude, did you know how fucking amazing Gundam was? I'm like, yeah, War in the Pocket, 0080, I know. He's like, it's amazing. And then he saw me like, dude, Gunbuster. I'm like, I know, Macross, I know. Yu Hakusho, yeah, it's brilliant. Escaflowne, it's brilliant, I know. Japan has been doing long-form storytelling a lot longer than the cable stuff that we've seen in recent stuff, and they do a lot of it better. And a lot of reasons anime is so popular is that when you actually deep dive and get into a lot of anime, a lot of it's fucking amazing. And it captures the feeling of reading a comic. And I'd even say early Game of Thrones had an anime-like quality to it. But yeah, I mean, I like Death Note as much as everyone, and Cowboy Bebop, Trigun, all the classics. I like Outlaw Star and Gundam, but yeah, anything from Gainax, anything from Ghibli, the Gundam universe throughout most of its run. Maybe not all the 2000 stuff. And I love a lot of shonens. I love the original Dragon Ball. I love the first part of DBZ. You know, all that. I mean, all that stuff's amazing. You know, One Piece is even really Detective Conan. Future Boy Conan by Miyazaki is amazing. Lupin the Third. I'm a huge Lupin the Third fan. I don't have thoughts on Under the Silver Lake. Yeah, Lupin, I'm huge on. Sherlock Hound, Panda Go Panda. Speed Racers really would probably get it into me early. I own every episode of Speed Racer. I have Speed Racer stuff in my apartment, like the Mach 5. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with it. I'm still a fan. But yeah, I mean, shit. One Punch Man was great. Berserk's a great manga. I'm into a lot of manga. It's a No, I'm just, he's asking me what animes I like. I'm like, well, I like all those animes. I mean, I like a lot. And especially a lot of the classic shit. I mean, to me, 80s anime and is just like, you know, not even just Akira and stuff like that, just the shows. And I mean, even think about Nausicaa as a film in the 80s, and it's Star Wars influence, and it's one of the best dystopian films. Yeah, Astro Boy, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's funny, I always try to hide on this channel how much of a fan of anime I am, because it's such a cliche to be an anime fag on the internet, and it's so much of the reference points. But I think recently I've become more comfortable with the fact that anime is also part of my geekdom and me liking comic books and movies and all that stuff, that anime's in there too. And that's kind of why I put the Gundam Wing part at the beginning of the Game of Thrones Part 2 video. And I specifically went to Terrible Lizard and I said, listen, I want to begin this with a reference to this famous meme, this Gundam Wing from the episode of Gundam Wing where Hero wipes the tear away and tells Relene he's going to kill her, which is hilarious. And then he was like, I'm not aware of it. He didn't know. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? So I sent him the clip. I was like, dude, this is classic shit. And then he kind of filled in the blanks with the, the adoring fans, applause. I hope you won't fuck it up beyond recognition. And that intro got a great response. I think we kind of captured like an ER level of meme there. I think that was ER level stuff. I'm very proud of it and what Terrible Lizard did. But I don't think people know this. A lot of the things Terrible Lizard does are my ideas. He just executes them and does things I wouldn't think to do. But I come to him and I say, hey, I want to do this. So a lot of those things are my ideas. So I go to him and I'm like, dude, we got to do this Gundam Wing thing with D&D. And his brilliant idea was to carry over the we kind of forgot thing from the first video. That's the part that killed me. And I want to do more stuff like that in future content. But I guess I'm coming out of the closet as an anime fan. It's something I've really downplayed. But as you saw, I did those music videos with Sharkfoot's music to Gynax Rewind and Gundam Rewind. And I'm, I am a fan of it, and I grew up on it very much so. I like the new Joker trailer. It looked very much like the King of Comedy. It looks like the end he's going to hold people hostage with a group of Jokers to be on television like Rupert Pumpkin held Jerry Lewis on hostage, because we see that he did stand up and then De Niro's mocking him. And then at the end, he's like saying, call me Joker before I go on. And they're all freaked out. And you see these guys outside the theater. So I'm thinking he has a group of followers that are holding people hostage, and he gets to go on TV at the end. So it feels very much like King of Comedy now, and less so the Taxi Driver influence I sort of saw. Or I was thinking maybe Mean Streets. Although I keep hearing Uncut Gems is similar to Mean Streets. But yes, King of Comedy is very... all of Scorsese's 80s work outside of Raging Bull is underrated. That movie's underrated. After Hours is one of his best films. Is still underrated. Last Temptation of Christ is very good. You could see how he built himself up to Goodfellas, because Goodfellas goes back to Mean Streets. That's totally what he's going back to with that movie. But, people think about Taxi Driver and Raging Bull, but there's this experimental stage with those films in the 80s. And I think it kind of leads to the more polished commercial presentation of Goodfellas that led him into the next. And he still tried to do experimental different movies. I mean, Bringing Out the Dead and Kundun and stuff like that's very interesting. And even recent stuff like Silence is kind of like that kind of Scorsese film. But I think... I think his work in the 80s is sort of, underappreciated for sure. I don't know if Joker will, probably financially, but most people are going to watch The Irishman on Netflix, so I don't really know if it's going to matter. Because nobody can do Scorsese as good as Scorsese. Even if it's him old and he's making this movie with special effects, and, he's still going to do camera work. I mean, even that scene in the trailer where De Niro shoots the guy through the window, there's still the way Scorsese directs a scene that nobody else can really capture. But I love that character of Rupert Pumpkin, though. I think he's Jerry Lewis is amazing in that movie, too. And it was nice to see him play something like that. New York Stories, he didn't... Yeah, I didn't like his short story in that. I liked Woody Allen's. I did not like Coppola. Isn't it weird there's a movie Coppola, Woody Allen, Scorsese all worked on, and it kind of, like, sucks? It's like the Twilight Zone movie. If you told me that John Landis, Spielberg, George Miller, and Joe Dante are making a movie, I'd be like, that's the best fucking movie ever. And it's just a fucking mess. Kick the Can's horrible. They killed children. They just killed fucking children with helicopters because they're psychopaths. And the beginning is... the beginning's the best part. The beginning with Dan Aykroyd and Albert Brooks is amazing. And yeah, it picks up in the second half, but Yeah, that's how I feel. New York Stories, it's like, why is that so mediocre? Why isn't that movie great? It's funny because it's kind of obvious Woody Allen would have the best one because, yeah, it's short stories. Duh. You know, Woody Allen is more suited for that as a writer than I think the other two were. Um, Even though Coppola was a very good writer, I think Woody Allen's like, yeah, they should have just let Woody write everything. You know, fucking Spielberg and John Landis, they know that I know what they did. I know what you did. I've seen the footage, guys. I've seen the heads come off. It's real. We've all watched it. I know what you did to Vic Morrow and those kids. I know that they shouldn't have been after those hours. I know that it didn't get security clearance. I know that Spielberg left after it fucking happened. And I know he was the main producer. And I know that John Landis was put up for fucking manslaughter. Which I believe, and Max Landis took a shit of it. And I'm scared of it that I know this. I'm scared that somehow this is the most covered up story in Hollywood history. I mean, people talk about Me Too. They talk about all this shit that Natalie Wood and all that, Roman Polanski, and for some reason, all of society has forgotten about the Twilight Zone incident. People are aware of it happening, but everyone's forgotten about Steven Spielberg and John Landis being involved. And people are like, well, that ruined Landis' career. It's like, no, he made Coming to America after that shit. Not true. This wasn't the Stupids era. And it's one of the things that makes me horrified about Steven Spielberg. And as Blood Money brings up, Jurassic Park is a film about him apologizing for it, for fuck's sakes. He is John Hammond. He is John Hammond is Steven Spielberg in that movie. He's a man playing God with his toys and overreaches, and he puts children in danger. I mean, that's what it fucking is. It's about a guy playing God, and he's kind of this Dr. Monroe villain character, but they have John Hammond be this sweet, wonderful old man. And it's Spielberg is being like, yeah, we have these special effects, we have this technology, but we're abusing it, we're not using it with respect. And he's not talking just about the CGI and Hollywood, but he's also talking about himself as a filmmaker. And the movie ends with two kids safe and alive in a fucking helicopter. Are you kidding me? It's there. Jurassic Park is Spielberg's apology. It is swept under the rug. So I have a fear. I'm going to get a letter from Steven Spielberg, right? And I'm going to read it, and he's going to go, come meet me out in this field. And I'm going to go out in the middle of the field, and I'm going to look up, and it's going to be like North by Northwest, and I'm going to become aware of what he's doing. And I see a helicopter flying in the distance, and I'm like, oh no. And I start running from it, and it's coming down. Spielberg's going to put a hit on me, and Tom Hanks will be flying that helicopter. I'm telling you right the fuck now. Tom Hanks will be flying that goddamn helicopter because he's also secretly a villain that is part of this conspiracy. He is part of this conspiracy and higher-ups of Hollywood. That's how deep it goes. So I'm going to have to run through Hollywood movies to escape Tom Hanks, and the only people that'll help me are guys who have been kicked out of Hollywood. So I can only get help from Me Too people. That's it. I can only get help from Me Too people. No, none of the other guys will help me. They're all in this club. It'll be like Fight Club. Everyone's a member. So I'll just be running from helicopters and people that have been ostracized from Hollywood. And I'll be like, I'll be getting chased through the minecarts in Temple of Doom. Like, man, he's made so many good movies. I'll be running from a boulder. I'll be going through all these Spielberg movies. I'll be chased by the truck from Duel. The fucking Duel truck will be chasing me. I'll have to jump in the ocean. There'll be a fucking shark. And the only problem is, if I need help from these Me Too people, one of the people who has been kicked out of Hollywood in this modern day, the irony of this is Max Landis. Max fucking Landis. So I'll have to go to the son of the man who's contributing to my death. And I'll be like, Max, you gotta help me, man. He'll be like, dude, they made up the shit about me. Yeah, whatever. Anyway, you gotta help me. So then we'll have this confrontation with Steven Spielberg, you know? And Spielberg will be there, and Max Landis will be fighting Spielberg. And he'll be like, no, Max, I have to tell you something. I'm your father. You are Max Spielberg. No! Oh, wait, actually, that's better. And then Max is gonna turn on me. So in the final set piece of me being chased by Tom Hanks in a helicopter trying to chop my head off like those two children in Vic Morrow who were horribly murdered on the set of The Twilight Zone, there's only one man who can save me and defeat this Tom in his helicopter. And that's another Tom in a helicopter. That's right. Tom fucking Cruise, Mission Impossible Fallout. He's gonna fly in and save my ass, take me away, and have a helicopter fight with Tom Hanks. Tom Cruise is gonna fucking drop the claw hook thing, anchor, whatever the fuck that was, kill Tom Hanks, who really wasn't doing anything that interesting to begin with. Oh, Mr. Rogers movie, whatever. And then take me into the Church of Scientology to protect me, and then I will find out that Scientology's been trying to take down Spielberg this whole time. I mean, what else do I have? Spielberg's gonna send me to the showers naked. It's gonna be Amistad. I'm gonna be getting whipped on the ship. It's gonna be Minority Report. I gotta run into a car factory. All of it. Yeah, Jeffrey Katzenberg. The whole team will be in there. It'll be the fucking Avengers of these guys. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go to wine. Kevin Spacey's gonna help me. You know, he'll help me out. Louis C.K. will be there. He'll be like my Rufus. Yeah, all of those things are gonna happen. It'll be horrifying. If Spielberg's just this villain, he's just evil. Yeah, I mean, I know Tom Cruise has worked with Spielberg, but I think that's just to get in with him. You know, I think it was like he was infiltrating him, like he was a spy, trying to find out what's going on, that Spielberg's been building these helicopters to kill children all over the world. And I will not stand for it. You hear me, Steven Spielberg? I'm not putting up with it anymore. I'm coming for you, man. I don't care if you're like 80. Yeah, it's fucking insane. How is this forgotten about? There was a big fucking trial. Do you know that they had to screen the footage to the jury and they showed it in the Academy Award theater? The theater for the Academy Awards, they showed the fucking Twilight Zone footage to the fucking jury of the kids and Morrow getting their heads cut off. They wouldn't fucking watch it in the Academy Theater. It's fucking insane. I can't remember, like, I read somebody was on the jury and it was someone crazy, like, it was like Richard Dreyfuss or something was on, someone like that. I was like, what? It keeps getting deeper. And no one talks about it anymore. It's just gone. It just disappeared. The greatest trick that Spielberg ever, pulled was that he made people think the Twilight Zone, the movie, didn't exist. People don't even remember that segment John Landis directed. It somehow got forgotten in between Thriller and, like, Trading Places somewhere. Insanity. The POV of the truck driver like it's a VR movie. I'm gonna kill this motherfucker. Duel, bitch. Wouldn't it be crazy this whole time Spielberg was like just this asshole? He was just this awful human being and it was all just a lie, it was all just a ruse, and it was just to gain more power. Like, I mean, that would be horrible. But like, part of me's like, maybe. Yeah, Mumkey would come save me. He mentioned my channel, that ended up being pointless. He doesn't have a channel anymore. Yeah, Eddie Murphy's funny, you dipshit. Just wondering, been here for a while, what changes would you make to Evangelion? I don't know, man. Make the end of Ava the actual end of the TV show. Keep that kind of thing going. I mean, I'm scared. I stay up every night, you know, thinking about helicopters. I mean, it's like that scene in The Matrix where Neo shows up in the helicopter. Like, I watch that stuff, I get triggered. Very scary. Jackie Chan Adventures, The Spielberg Conspiracy. This summer. I'm vaping a what's it called? Top of the Muffin, which is like a cinnamon apple juice. I'm not vaping marijuana, if that's what you're thinking. What if John Landis, a famous director, killed 2 children and got away with it? Spielberg's like the Emperor and John Landis is like Darth Vader. You know, he fell from grace and we all want him to come back and be the hero again, but he just can't make Blues Brothers anymore. Yeah, no, Spielberg ruined helicopters for Hollywood. There wasn't helicopters in movies for a while. I don't think there was a helicopter in a movie till like Rambo 3. Oh, well, there was one in the first Rambo, but I don't know what I think Twilight Zone came after that. But like, yeah, people are like, fuck helicopters. Die Hard has a helicopter. It's like, hey, keep that away from Bruce Willis's head. The Earth rejects them. Yeah, I used to have a lot of people tell me, like, it doesn't make sense that helicopters fly. I used to hear that all the time when I was a kid. I grew up in Texas, and everyone used to always tell me the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Hey, Cordery, when are you free, man? So we can do the... I wanted the first episode to be me interviewing you. But, you know, whatever. I didn't get a hold of you. So give me a day that's cool, and we'll do a Please Rewind live. You can tell me on Twitter. You don't have to tell me in the chat. It's okay. It's okay, baby. You get the honor of first guest, and then I'll probably bring in David Stewart, and then we're hoping for the Mahler interview. Let's pull for that one. That's the one instead of me going on EFAP, why not bring Mahler here? It'll be better anyway, then we won't have the other people there who aren't funny. Pat, you want to know best Lupin the Third meme? 3 guys laughing. How do you think James Cameron feels now that the highest grossing movie of all time, adjusted for inflation, is not one of Phipps' film for the first time in over 2 decades? He probably cared for a little while, but I hope it boosts him to make Avatar 2 even better. Be a bad host and check your phone. God damn it. You know, every time I see that picture you have up of Ridley Scott, that drunk old bastard, that's so funny. But I can say this about Ridley Scott. Despite his bad filmography in the second half of his career, he never killed children with a helicopter. I can say that about the man. Let's at least give Ridley Scott that. Those helicopters in Black Hawk Down killed no children. Wait a minute. I think I'm getting Spielberg and Cameron mixed up. I do it all the time. What are they, Bill Paxton and Bill Pullman for you? They don't even have a similar name. Yeah, and that Harrier jet sequence is fucking awesome. I bet Spielberg made people forget about DreamWorks animations too, since DreamWorks animation doesn't make money anymore. Yeah, Merry Fuckmas to them. They're both kind of masters of geography and camera placement. Yeah, what's it sticky from? All that semen? You were watching that incest porn, weren't you? You dirty boy. I'm a white guy, though. I'm into that shit, too. I get it. Yeah, even Michael Bay hasn't killed children yet. I mean, really. Say what you will. He's no John Landis. I think Spielberg also made everyone forget about Always. I think that's another one that he's like, I gotta get rid of this. I don't know. I think he's... Yeah, that's a good point. Why, if your screen's sticky, do you have a sticky typo? Wouldn't it be a sticky keyboard? I know. Isn't that the awful thing that Michael Bay hasn't been thrown under the bus? It's like, please, me too, Michael Bay. God damn it. I will fucking give my left nut. I'll kill myself if you don't me too, Michael Bay. Please, do it for me. No, despite all of his efforts, Crystal Skull remains in the mind. I feel like Indiana Jones just staring at that skull. Like, what the fuck? I wonder what Harrison Ford was thinking when they were filming that scene. He's probably too high to care. He's probably thinking, like, I don't want to get killed by the helicopter. So I might as well just stare at this fucking skull. And then, you know, Dan Aykroyd had vodka on the set. Dan Aykroyd's in Temple of Doom for like 3 seconds. Weird. I don't even think he's on the credits. He just puts Indiana Jones on a plane. And it's Dan Aykroyd, and it's like, okay. John Landis is the comedic Spielberg, though, so... 1941 feels like a John Landis movie, and then... God, and then what? And then there's and then I would say Blues Brothers has Spielberg elements, actually. It's got a lot of kind of, Sugarland Express elements to it, and... Yeah, of course it's a shame what happened to Vic Morrow. It's awful. I don't know. I'm gonna try to do them maybe once a week or twice a month. I don't know. Like I said, this was to indulge in my own narcissism. So I guess whenever I need reinforcement to feel good about myself when I feel low. Even Hitler didn't kill children in his films. Oh yeah, The Color of Money. Thank you for bringing that up. Also, another underrated Scorsese film that I fucking adore. I love The Color of Money. No, I have not heard that theory. Not indeed. Okay, so to sum it all up, Christopher Nolan, of this last decade, which would have started with what, 2010, right? Yeah, that would be the beginning. What's my Her? Her would probably be at the very top of that list by Spike Jonze. Some of them on top of the head things. It's very tough to just be like, oh, this movie. Just trying to. I guess I'll just go with things off the top of my head and what just comes to mind and just list them off real quick of this last decade. So, Her would be up there. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, when I first saw, I really loved it. And Caesar was an iconic character to me. As silly as that might seem to some people now, but at the time, that was a big deal for me. Shit. Weird, I can't just think of more. Beasts of No Nation, Cary Fukunaga. Great movie. One of the best films I've seen in the last few years. Nightcrawler. The Dan Gilroy film. Shit. I'm having a harder time with this than I thought I would. The Handmaiden. Whiplash. By Damien Chazelle, obviously. I'd have to let me look at some movies of the last decade and dude, Rise of the Planet of the Apes is great. I'm sorry. I mean, it's got flaws. James Franco sucks and all that, but Caesar's journey and him building a world in his image and that ending, Caesar is home and everything on the bridge, all that stuff's great. I mean, so much of that's so brilliant. And at the time, it was just such a surprise. You know, when it came out, I mean, everybody thought it was gonna like suck, and it ended up being like this great movie. Yeah, Ex Machina, that's a good hard hate. That's fun. Yeah, Ex Machina, I would have up there for sure. Big fan. Come on, it's fucking. I'm trying to look up some movies of the last 10 years so I have some answers that are instead of just trying to think. Be like, what the fuck? I don't know. Oh, Side Effects, Steven Soderbergh. Also Gone Girl by David Fincher, which are basically the same movie. But yeah, those movies I absolutely adore. Let's see here. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Come on. Trying to find something that has a list of movies from the last 10 years, and it's like fucking hard to find any goddamn thing. Sort of annoying. Yeah, but Zodiac wasn't from this last decade. It was from the decade before, right? Zodiac came out in like 2007. So that wouldn't be this last decade. Drive. Yeah, I'd have Drive up there. I love Drive. I know it's cool to hate it now, but I still like it. Even if Refn hasn't really made anything great since that. Let's see. Because yeah, if we were going off that previous decade, I'd be like City of God, Let the Right One In, Memories of Murder. Oh, fuck this list. They have Knight of Cups on here. That's fucking ridiculous. Fuck you. Yeah, Enemy. Enemy I liked a lot. I didn't even... 12 Years a Slave's a great movie for like 2 acts. I really like Moonrise Kingdom. I also like... I mean, to be fair, I haven't like loved a lot of movies the last 10 years. There's a few movies I'd give like a 9 or a 10 to. Yeah, Beasts of the Southern Wild. I forgot about that movie. I did love that movie. Yeah, great flick. So that comes off the top of my head there. Oh, Good Time. Recently, the Safdie brothers, and with that too, Three Billboards also was a great movie. Which really surprised how great it was. And then yeah, those ones come to mind in recent years. Call Me by Your Name isn't like one of my favorites. It's a pretty good movie. Same thing with like Hell or High Water. There's a lot of good movies. You're just asking me like what my favorites are. Great. So I'm trying to think what are the movies that are like classics to me now that I consider that I'd be watching like 20 years from now. Sorry, I have a question here at the super chat. Do you like based on real event movies like Charlie Wilson's War, American Made, American Gangster, and Kill the Messenger? Yeah, if they're good, if they're well made and a good movie, I don't care if they're based off a real story or not. I mean, that's I like the ones that I like and ones that I don't like. As a genre, it's not one of my favorites though. Three Billboards is that one with Frances McDormand and Sam Rockwell, and felt kind of like a Coen Brothers movie. I think they made that movie A Serious Man, but I don't think that was this last decade. I love that movie that they made. Most Jewish film ever made. That's one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies, actually. Here's my... Oh, Social Network. Yeah, fuck. Social Network's way high up on the list. Yeah, I agree with a lot of those. Social Network, Whiplash, Gone Girl, Good Time, fuck yeah, Nightcrawler, 12 Years a Slave. Hurry, I agree. I think that, yeah, a lot of those I think are like the best movies of the last 10 years. Yeah, I've heard great things about Under the Silver Lake. Heard really good things about it. Unless I'm thinking about a different film, that makes me think... I always think about that film, Stranger by the Lake, which I adore, which I would also say is one of my favorite films of the last 10 years. Which I think is an amazing movie. Yeah, Inception's good. Yeah, not as big on Under the Skin. And although Call Me by Your Name, once again, really good movie. Sure, it's not. It's yeah, Inception's definitely held up. Like people still say somethingception, or you still hear blah. So it's still relevant. People still bring it up. I don't know if it's weird. It's interesting. Yeah, Dunkirk's one of the better ones I've seen for sure too. And I think in many ways that's Nolan's best film in the last fucking forever since I really liked Nolan back in the early days. You know, and to be fair, the last two Harry Potter films for those kind of movies and um you know, that kind of stuff. I would love to put a Miyazaki film in there, but I think the only one he made this last decade was The Wind Rises, which I don't love. Toy Story 3, I'm a big fan of. Obviously, that's a movie I adore, so I'd put that up there as well. Yeah, I like Sorry to Bother You. It was on my top 10 list last year. Your mom said hi. Okay. But anyway, Dave Chappelle getting attacked. Nolan has a new time travel movie coming out, big blockbuster. And It Chapter 2 isn't getting the reviews. And it's questionable if it's going to perform as well as the first movie. I think it could have made $800 million. I think 550 million is more where it's going to end up now. I mean, I would hope you have better memories than The Last Jedi. Uh, uh, Game of Thrones prequel when they come out. What do you think they should do? I mean, I'll probably talk about them. I feel like this channel would do better if I talked more about television. I like talking about The Boys, and I like talking about Barry. And I think doing individual episode reviews could really benefit my channel. So I could see myself watching the Game of Thrones prequels and talking about them, yes. And the Lord of the Rings show. I could see myself, and the Watchmen show, I'm very much considering doing a series on. But who knows, you know? I should be reviewing every new movie that comes out every weekend. This channel would be a lot bigger if I had done that. I'll probably never talk about The Shield. And if I was smarter, I'd be staying on topic with big things happening right now. And I always just kind of do my own thing. Like, I'm going to do a Donnie Darko video, or I'm going to release a Game of Thrones review 2 months after it's over. Or I'm just going to make a Gundam montage. I kind of just do what I want. And it sucks when I kind of run out of inspiration. I've seen The Message. I have not seen Lion of the Desert. I'm aware of it, but I've not seen it. Yes, I am aware of the trailer for The King starring Timothy Chalamet. I didn't watch it. I've heard people talk about it. I watched the Little Women trailer by Greta Gerwig, which everything that whatever her fucking name is, Sarashi Shonen Sapa, every line of dialogue she has in that trailer is awful. Where did Ridley Scott go wrong? When he made Gladiator, I think. When he got to that point, he started making movies like that, and he became like a blockbuster filmmaker in that way. And not that he hadn't been. G.I. Jane was a big movie. He had made big movies, but when he kind of changed his style and his style of filmmaking, and when his bad instincts, the things that were bad about him, really started to come up in the forefront and kind of be. Yeah, I would like to talk about The Boys with me and Blood Money had some fun conversations about it. I wish we'd recorded something. I would do more videos like that, but nobody watches them. I also love the Day for Night video. I love my American Graffiti video. I love my Back to the Future video, and my favorite year, which I have the laser disc for, sitting right beside me. Um, I love doing underrated classics, but nobody ever watched those. They're my favorite. The Cinema Paradiso video, the Almost Famous one. Yeah, the Day for Night. That's one of my favorite videos I've ever done on this whole channel. You know, when I made this channel, that's what I wanted this channel to be. Was me talking about films that I had loved from the 70s and the 80s and 90s, and films that weren't talked about all the time. I wanted to talk about movies like I wanted to talk about Truffaut. I wanted to talk about Rossellini. I wanted to talk about Bergman and Tarkovsky and all these directors I hadn't seen discussed much on YouTube or had videos made about them or their movies. And I wanted to talk about films that nobody talks about on the internet, or everyone does the same videos, and everyone makes a Star Wars video. Everyone talks about the MCU, and I wanted to make videos for real film buffs who I want to talk about how great Hal Ashby is. I want to talk about The Last Detail, and I wanted to make videos built around that. I was very influenced by A.O. Scott's Critics Picks series, and I put a lot of passion in those videos. Those are really the essays that were in my heart for those movies. But every time I made one, I mean, they barely broke 1,000 views. Yeah, I think I have one. I think I would make the argument that I have one of the best American Graffiti, Goodfellas, and Back to the Future reviews you'll see online. I stand by that too. I think they're great, and I worked really hard on all those, and that was kind of like what I wanted Please Rewind to be. I wanted the channel to be about that stuff, and you could see it there, and that's the stuff I'm into. You know, I would like to talk about ordinary people, which I got to mention in the Good Will Hunting video. But people don't watch that stuff, so I have to make Game of Thrones and Last Jedi videos to keep the channel somewhat relevant. And you make those videos occasionally and hope you guys enjoy it. Like the Gilbert Grape video, I loved making it. Nobody watched it. Fright Night video. You know, I did all those videos on all those movies, The Exorcist, and nobody ever watches those. So that's just what it is. I had to accept that you know, I was making them for me, which is fine, and I like making them, but it's a bit masturbatory at that point. I hear you discuss them in context, but I've never seen wrestling and the other guys, so it sounds interesting, but I have no Well, that's the problem. You really have to, you have to. It's just taste. It's my taste. That's the kind of movies I like. That's what I grew up on. And you know, I was asked recently who my favorite directors were, and I just went off the top of the head, and I was surprised by my answers because I knew I liked Woody Allen, and I was going to probably pick him, but I was surprised that I went with Milos Forman and Mike Nichols, and you know, then Jonathan Demme came up, which a lot of guys like Jonathan Demme, and I think I was like in my head, part of me was like Hal Ashby or Altman. But I can't remember who the other guy I picked was. But I know that it was Sidney Lumet, who's like I adore. But the fact that I thought like, yeah, Milos Forman, how much of a fan of him I am, and people don't make videos about him, and people don't make videos about Mike Nichols and his career, and he's so famous. He was a famous theater director, and he made all these famous great movies. People know The Graduate and stuff, but like Working Girl is such a good movie. And I would love to talk about that stuff more. Possibly do a video on New Hollywood. Yeah, no, the Dark Tower video was a little clickbaity in that sense. Working Girl is incredibly underrated. It goes back to like a classic rom-com film. It's got Howard Hawks elements. It's fucking amazing. Harrison Ford's great in it. Yeah, Mike Nichols has a bunch of great movies, man. I mean, The Birdcage is even great. People just forget how great Mike Nichols is. And Milos Forman, everyone just knows Amadeus and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but they forget that he made films before that, and he was still making good movies like The People versus Larry Flint after that. Yeah, that's the problem with being a YouTuber, is that you have to struggle with that, with the views and what people want and the kind of format they want, that they want these essays this way. And they want, you know, because I wanted to do like the video on private lessons. That's my dream video. It only got like 12,000 views. That's the kind of videos I want to make. But those just aren't the ones. It's like, let's bitch about Game of Thrones or something. It's got to kind of have a title and a thumbnail that sort of like catches the eye, instead of just saying, you know, I'm going to do a video about this thing I dig and kind of just come from real place. Why don't you just record a conversation with someone else about one of these? I try to do that with Blood Money. This is basically me and Blood Money's conversations for the last 3 years, and we talked about this. We just never get around to recording it. We have like these 6-hour conversations, and I'm like, what, am I supposed to edit 6 hours of audio? I do talk about movies with friends, and I have, and I think that's when I'm at my best, is when I'm talking with someone else and bouncing off these movies that have knowledge. A big issue is it's hard to find someone that knows these movies. I don't think most YouTubers, especially video channels, when I talk to them, I don't think they've actually seen a lot of movies. I think they've seen a lot of famous movies, but I don't think they've seen a lot of movies in general, and I think their film knowledge doesn't go far much further past the 90s. So it's hard to have these kind of conversations. I think if I could talk to Jay from Red Letter Media, me and him would hit it off. Basically, kind of like what Review is. I would like to do something like that. And just pick a movie and me and some dude just sit around. Or it could be a chick and we just talk about them and why we dig them. And it could just be movies that we like. And it doesn't have to be some movie that people are like, oh, great, they're talking about this one. Like them talking about Top Secret. That's awesome. And I don't think yeah, I haven't met many people that actually know those movies who are at least in the online world to have those conversations with. So that's where I'm at with that stuff. That's all it is. But that's the plan with Blood Money. That was the idea of uh the beef stew. Is we wanted to talk about, like, eventually we were going to talk about Chasing Amy and just do a whole episode on Chasing Amy called like Chasing Kevin Smith and make it a discussion about what happened with Kevin Smith and videos like that. That was kind of the idea, is like, or talking about Cusack and how much I love him, and I would love to do a series on Cusack movies. And my Cusackian thesis, if you will. I have no theories on Game of Thrones because it's pointless. Well, I know that the fans I do have of this channel, like some of you guys, and that's why I really like the community we've built here, because it isn't filled with a bunch of normies, is that we do like that stuff, and that's the kind of conversations we try to have, and you guys support that, and there's enough of you for it to be okay that it's not totally indulgent, um and you guys appreciate that. I know a lot of you think I'm underrated or that, but that's a wrong way to look at it, because that's just perception. It's like, me, I don't deserve to be famous or rich. I don't deserve that shit. That's stupid. And I think a lot of people, like you, Sketch Therapy, I think a lot of people, I've heard this a lot of people who sub to me, people don't see you anymore. Like, I mean, I have 15,000 subscribers. Where are they? And people are going to say, oh, your channel died off, people forgot about it. That's what everyone always says to me. Then I find someone like Sketch Therapy or on a chat, and they're like, dude, you're still around? There's still people from the patriarchy days that don't know I still make content that find me and message me and like, dude, I used to listen to you every day. I mean, those subscribers didn't happen years ago. A lot of those 15,000 subscribers are recent, and they don't see my content. They don't see the notifications. They don't know I'm doing stuff. And then they come back and they're like, dude, I used to watch you all the time. Or like married couples, like telling me they listen to me at night. People listen to me when they work out. People who have been in the hospital, that have loved me for years. And then they just lose track of the channel. I don't know if it's because when I moved to Columbus, I didn't make a lot of content for a few months, so it got fucked in the algorithm. But, I have a fan base. I mean, JonTron subscribed to me. Sargon watches me. I've been friends with some bigger YouTubers. I mean, people are aware of me, and I have a fan base out there of people that I've met. I've even met some of these people in life who are like, dude, you're that guy, you're Please Rewind, like, who saw videos of mine on Reddit. I've met people in real life who even know I am. So it's sort of that way, but I think almost because I didn't become super successful, it's kept the channel better in a sense. Like Red Letter Media and James Rolfe are somehow able to get really big and still keep that thing that made them good. Yeah, I agree, Funny. I've seen that too. But I think because I didn't ever become an e-celebrity and I didn't get big when the skeptic community stuff was going on, and then I didn't become a big essay channel, and I'm kind of always at odds with the algorithm, I think it makes the content better. And I would rather that my content be better and last the test of time, to where some of those videos are going to still be really good 10 years from now. Happiness is obviously my favorite one. I did a video on it. Where some of those other YouTubers, I think, are making videos that are current and good in the moment, but I don't know necessarily if they're making videos that, you know, will ever be seen later or watch or stay in people's heads. And I think one thing I'm very proud of this channel is I think, and don't get me wrong, I think a lot of my videos suck or were flawed or were of the moment, and I don't love them when I think back on them. But I think the ones that are really good, I think are a little bit a cut above the average. And I think I can't go into it because it's too private. But I had an apocalyptic evening last Saturday. I mean, I'm not that excited Sargon's a fan of my work. I just used to always tell people Sargon knew who I was, and people would always tell me that I made that up. And that a lot of people knew who I was. And people were like, where are you making that up? And then Sargon revealed he had been watching me for years, and I was like, guys, like, I don't know why you guys, everyone thinks you're being like an egomaniac. You're like, no, I know people, some of these bigger YouTubers watch my content. I'm not bragging. I'm just saying they're aware of me. I've had contact with these people, but people don't believe you. I've been in some private chats with some pretty big YouTubers before. It's just I don't talk about it. I mean, the live streams were never small. They got smaller. They got to 30 people. There used to be a point the live streams averaged a pretty good amount. I subbed after your long night review, and I felt the same exact way. I hope the Remin Dajshi, however you say the composer, gets an Emmy for that music. Well, thank you, JF. I appreciate you subbing and watching my content. No, we have not gotten married yet. We've been holding off that marriage. Even Mahler, the most intellectually sounding voice on YouTube, second years. You know, I think me and Mahler would just get on like a couple schoolgirls. I think me and Mahler would be like fireworks. I think we'd fall in love. I think what him and Wolf, what he wanted him and Wolf to have, I think we could have. I think we could even each other out. I think he brings the voice and a lot of really interesting opinions, and he has this great way of breaking things down, and I think I bring a bit more of the knowledge, and I think we would have a good rapport. I mean, I could be totally wrong, but I think me and Mahler could really hit it off. And it's not like I want to use him for success. I was watching Mahler before he got big. I always liked Mahler's content, but I just feel like me and him would just hit it off really well. It's true. I think there's a chemistry there. I think he comes from a very similar place to I do. In the way that he wanted to make the kind of videos that other people weren't making on YouTube, and he talks about that he wanted to make these like 5-hour-long videos that really broke things down, and he didn't care about fancy editing. He cared more about the commentary, and I just kind of always did what I wanted to do too, and I didn't really follow the trends either. He just, you know, his stuff caught on, but that didn't make me, that just made me think like, okay, it's cool, you can make it doing that kind of stuff. You don't necessarily have to. Not that his stuff wasn't similar to other stuff, but that, you know, that he had the balls to make 5-hour videos and they were successful. Or that he went after H-Bomber guy and really did the ultimate takedown of that piece of shit. So I feel very connected with him in that way. That we both love YouTube as a platform, but we're so against so much of what the content has become, in particular with these video essays or these film experts and the way I hate them so much and what they've done to that genre. Yeah, I don't know what happened with Wolfman. I have no fucking idea. I mean, the dude always seemed like he was depressed and had issues. I think the negative comments might have got to him. I mean, it gets to me. I'm not going to act like when I read a negative comment, it doesn't fuck me up. It has. Especially when it's something that has a hint of truth to it. That's when it really fucks you up. You're like, maybe that guy has a point. Yes, that's a good point. Mahler breaks the YouTube formula and is successful doing it due to strong arguments. Yeah, and it gives hope for that kind of future that we could have more interesting conversations. So that's the thing. So I don't know. I really like Mahler still. I know there's some people that have kind of turned on him, and I get it. He's maybe leaned on Star Wars a little bit too much at this point. But what are you gonna do? You know, he gives the people what they want. You can't complain about that. It's what the fans want, so he does it. I mean, dream thing would be like to talk to like iDubbbz. I used to think Naked Ape was like the gold standard, but I actually talked to Naked Ape a couple of times, and he's kind of fucking awful and very annoying. But yeah, like iDubbbz, I suppose would be like a dream. Um, Although I imagine he's boring to talk to. I don't know. I have this feeling about him. And of course, Red Letter Media. I mean, to talk to those guys would be amazing. Yeah, no, the comments do get to you. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you have to take criticism when you make stuff. When you make stuff, you have to handle criticism. But yeah, when somebody talks about your voice sucking, I get that a lot. People hate my voice, or the way I talk is stupid. And I know that I do this thing where, I talk too fast, or I go a lot, or I have these, I over explain things. Even though I feel like that's a way to, even it seems like I'm off topic, I'm actually transitioning to a new point. I think people don't pick up on it a lot. That's what I do. I find these ways to transfer to something else. You get those comments, but someone criticizes something in your video with the editing of it, or something you did in the video, a criticism you made, and a lot of the time you're like, you know what, fuck, you're right. You're right. I did fuck that up. That that was a bad point, or that was a bad edit. The audio wasn't good here, and I know when the audio is bad a lot of times. Just a lot of times I can't fix it because I don't make a lot of money off this, so I don't have the time to put into it. And I see those comments and they sting because it's like, yeah, shit. I feel like if I could have got all that stuff right, maybe that person would have enjoyed the video and they would have watched the content. And so it does hurt because you don't. It's not somebody rejecting you. I mean, rejection always hurts. It's the fact that I make this stuff to entertain people, and there was a chance maybe I could have entertained that person, and I let them down because of half-assing something I really should have put more time into. But I always tell people, this isn't my job, so when people expect you to treat it like it's your job, like you're supposed to be making the videos, like your living is based off YouTube, it's sort of ridiculous because when you do have a job and a life that isn't just this, it's tough because, I work 40 something hours a week. I have to do all these things. So it's not like I get up in the morning and I start to work on a YouTube script and then have all day to edit. I don't have that time to do it. So that's all it is. I mean but yeah, the comments hurt. And I could totally get somebody quitting YouTube for that reason. Cuz the pressure gets on you, and then people try to dox you, and it gets too personal. It really gets too personal on the internet, and that's the problem. And the whole e-celebrity thing's just kind of disgusting to me. Celebrity culture in general is disgusting to me, but it's even worse on the internet. Okay, don't waste time with what you can't change. I never cared about your voice because I'm into Asmer. I don't know. I like your brains and you're funny, but don't waste time on what you can't change. I mean, I know I'm funny. I never doubt that. When anyone tries to say you're not funny, I'm like, well, fuck you, dude. I'm fucking hilarious. I've worked on that shit. That's always my fallback job if everything goes to shit in my life. Just go do stand-up on the road. Yeah, I know. He wants us to love, Joel Schumacher. Because I used to think, could you make an argument for the merit of Joel Schumacher, Batman? You really can't. Except, like, Batman Forever has some decent cinematography in parts. Yeah, it's just not my career. If I'd made it big on YouTube and it was my job, I would totally get those criticisms more, because, like, yeah, it's your fucking job. But it's not my job, so you're gonna get half-assed videos sometimes. That's just the way it is. I've not seen The Terror. John Leguizamo in particular, his special Freak and Sexaholics is sort of what I want to like do, where you tell it's sort of like a one-man show. I'm more influenced by monologues. I'm more into like Spalding Gray and Eric Bogosian. That's more of the kind of, like, if I would do stand-up, it would be more like that. Or even sort of what like Kevin Smith does. Like how he tells that Prince story and Batman story. You kind of just tell stories that are funny and have good jokes. But even, Tarantino said to Kevin Smith on Clerks, he's like, did you like Clerks? And Tarantino said, yeah, but it really wasn't a movie. It was more like a stand-up act he filmed. And I think that's a great observation. And then there's even the stand-up kind of bit in Mallrats with Brody. So Kevin Smith's sort of like this comedian, this comedic writer who just ended up being a filmmaker. But that's what I would think. To me, it'd be more like I would like to do it in a Spalding Gray like way, Eric. I would like it to have visuals, a visual presentation. The How to Get a Girl video, and the way Terrible Lizard edited that. If I could do something like that live with that delivery, that deadpan delivery, and the visuals is reinforcing it, that would kind of be my dream stage performance, and that's kind of what I would like it to be. That a mix of the cinematic, a little bit of theater, just being theater with a guy telling funny stuff, saying funny stuff on a microphone. So those are my influences in that sense. Maybe not my favorite comedians per se, but that's kind of what I would go for. But I'm a huge comedy nerd. I've read hundreds of books about comedy. I've listened to hundreds of podcasts about comedy, specifically comedians. I've watched thousands of hours of stand-up. I mean, it's insane. I can't thousands of hours, maybe not thousands, but it's a big part of my life, comedy in general, not just movies or literature. It's stuff like when I read Philip Roth and all that. But yeah, comedians, I have a great respect for. What would you think your channel would be like if you made it in 2005? Well, I did have a channel back in like 2006 when I was a teenager, and it was like a lot of channels at that time. You tried to do sketches and make cringy like videos to get clicks for fun, and sometimes they would get views. I'd get videos that would get like 300,000 views back then, which was actually a lot back then. Actually, get 300,000 views, and most of the time they were just bullshit though, really poorly shot and acted. A lot. I mean, I wasn't that far from Smosh. If I was the age I am now, because really the kind of videos I wanted to make were more like what ended up becoming like the angry video game nerd, and every frame of painting. I thought about those kind of videos when I was a teenager, but I didn't really know how to make them, and I didn't have the resources to. But I saw that sort of format, that you could make these little mini documentaries on things you liked on anything, and you could use this platform to do it. And that's what I was interested in. You ever put a joke in a video that you thought was so fucking funny, but no one commented laughing at it, but they keep laughing at a joke you thought nothing of? Yeah, I always talk about this. I don't know if you have this, Quartery. This is why I'd like to have you on as a guest. I'd like to talk about being a YouTuber with you, because I think that'd be a fun conversation. You ever think about the silent laughter? I did a video on this. I would pay to see monologues from the video store, like if you dress like Pat the Avatar and occasionally got in a fight. Yeah, something like that's a good example. With lightsaber Yoda, that's a great example. But that you say something in a live stream or in a video that's so funny, and everybody's writing in the comments that they lost their shit laughing, but you don't get to hear them laughing. So when you do stand-up, when you do a live show or anything live, you get to hear the audience clap and laugh. So it's such an infectious experience. It releases this dopamine. And the weird thing about being a YouTuber is when you make a video and people tell you how much they love it, you're getting this like almost clinical experience where you're reading somebody comment that, and it makes you feel good, but it's not as rewarding as it would be if you could actually hear everybody laugh at that joke, or if you could hear people's like excitement or see their face, see their reactions to the stuff you're making, instead of it's like if you were a director and you could set in a screening of your movie, which I've done before for some of my films, and see how people react to it, which is also very, makes you nervous. But oh man, the patriarchy's gone. We've moved on from, and honestly, the patriarchy never went away. It still lives on in Pat. The persona's still there in Pat. It's just different now. It's changed because I've changed. But it's never really gone. Nothing's ever really gone. But it always freaks me out about that. I wish I could hear people's reactions, stuff. Well, comedy's just one of the great respites to life. It's finding a comedic take on things that don't make sense makes the craziness of everything kind of make sense. Like when Dave Chappelle said, I'm too smart, I'm scared to live in this world. Because because I see how easily everything could just fall apart, how fragile it all is, and I feel that way a lot of the time. And I think comedians have that. They see the lines. What's the saddest movie you've ever seen, or the moment that emotionally gutted you? I mean, shit. I mean, it's hard to not say Showa or something like that is like the saddest thing you've ever seen. You know, I'm trying to think. What's the scene that's like ripped my heart out the most? Because I'm a pretty emotional watcher of movies. I can get very something that just tore me the fuck up. I have a lot of answers to that question, and I think some other answers would probably be truer. But I'll just pick something that I'm thinking of that I watched that, because there'd be answers to things I watched when I was a kid, or some movies that have things that like make me cringe. But I think a lot about the ending of the movie In the Company of Men, the Neil LaBlute film, and what's his name? Aaron Eckhart. What there's a plot twist with his character and the other character Howard, and what he says to him, and it's so chilling. You know, where it's like, fuck, okay, this is very real. Like, this could be how a lot of people are. And just the last scene of that show, of that movie, and the way it's shot is, I don't know, I think about it sometimes, and it really fucks me up. Some days I just think about it, I'm like, yeah, that's really fucked up. But I'm sure there's better answers for that question. That's just what comes to mind. Because Stephen Colbert was always kind of unfunny and out of touch. To answer your question, it's just we're all becoming more aware of it now. He was always kind of shitty. I mean, everyone, dude's talented. He's very professional. He has his character down, but it's really nothing that, I mean, it really is the Emperor Has No Clothes situation with that guy. And I think that it's just become obvious now that he has to do the show in the way he does it. I feel the way about John. You know, his stuff lacks sophistication. I've wrestled like wrestling, not like WWE wrestling. I've wrestled like actual wrestling. Oh yeah. Schindler's List is filled with stuff that the scene where the children get taken away and all the mothers realize that the kids are being taken away, and the way the camera comes over to the kids when they're waving, they leave the kids up. It's like a Hitchcock shot. It's a brilliant shot because they're all bathing themselves, they're all happy, they're putting their clothes back on, and then the camera goes over and they see the kids waving, and then the mothers all freak out and they all run to go get the children, and they get stopped by the officers. No, I've never been arrested. No. Yeah, I'm not Tonka-san, sorry. That's what you were hoping. Yes, I've seen a grown man naked. Yes. If there's a movie and Tarantino hasn't seen it, is it even a real movie? That's fucking brilliant. That's a funny joke. Yeah, but is it real if I haven't seen it? All right. Okay. If I haven't seen it, man. Dude. If I haven't fucking seen it, man. I've seen every fucking movie, man. All right. There's a lot of movies. Yeah, a lot of movies have things about them that I'm like, that's fucked up. You know? It's hard to go back to them sometimes. After you've seen them once or twice, you're like, yeah, it's hard to go back to that. That's just fucks with my head. Oh yeah, Metro could definitely be a cool movie. Totally. It would have to be done like Alien, though. That's how you'd have to make the movie. All right, we've gone on 2 hours, and I have to work a double at work tomorrow, which is going to be a long 12-hour shift. Going to be rough. Going to be a rough weekend. But I did get a raise recently and another promotion, so I'm moving up in the world. I might be making a lot of money here in the next year, so I have a really good career opportunity. So hopefully, if I get the job I'm gunning for and I get the big money, and we're talking big money here, I will have the ability to buy new equipment for this channel and actually put time into the content and really do more stuff. So basically, if you're wondering why there's less content and stuff, it's because I'm in my real life, I'm trying to make something happen. Because, you know, I put a lot of time into YouTube and it just didn't happen. So it's still just a side project that I hope works out someday. And I think that's the smart way to do it. Take the opportunity that's in front of you instead of being a dreamer, even though I love dreamers, and try to keep the two together. I'm sorry, what was your super chat? I missed it, my bad. You can just, if you can just ask the question again. Well, let me go up. I'm sorry. Did you see my response to your postmodern Hollywood video? I did not see it, no. If you put the video in the comment section, here, I'll go look at that. I apologize, I did miss that, my bad. Thank you, Renford. Thank you so much. I like the logo too. That was Cordery did that. It's very similar to his stuff. Maybe when Mr. Robot's over, I'll talk about the whole show. And Cobra Kai, I need to watch a second season. But I'll possibly talk about it. I gotta find some stuff to review. Maybe I'll do some more underrated classics, stuff like that, just for fun. And since we're done with all the Game of Thrones shit, and I kind of want to turn the show... I tried to do the live streaming thing last year, and it didn't really work out, where I was just reviewing every movie as a live stream and doing box office addicts. But I really think Please Rewind Live could be a good show. I think leaving the box office for... Because I got the point. Here's the problem with Box Office Addict. You had to talk about the same 10 movies every week. Box Office Addict is a show that I only want to do when a new movie comes out. And then that's where talking about the opening weekend. Like, I don't want to talk about the same 10 movies every week. That's the problem. So it ended up just becoming a show where I talked to you guys for 2.5 hours, and we'd go to the box office occasionally, and we'd have to wait for something really big to happen, something to bomb or open, like an Avengers movie that was worth talking about. Where if you eliminate that format of the box office and what it is, yes, I would love if somebody made an updated version. I would like them to keep the avatar the same. That it would have to be Pat, the video store employee, in the outfit. But yes, if an artist made... I've seen some versions of it. No one's ever given me one. But if an artist wanted to make a more polished, modern, not the Hanna-Barbera style that this is based off of, which is what I wanted. If people wanted to do a different avatars for Pat, I would totally update the avatar, yes. But so far, nobody's really given me that yet, without wanting me to pay them money. So, yeah, I'm not going to pay someone like $50 for it. Well, it's not that I want something that necessarily looks like... I mean, I might end up making more videos where I'm talking to the camera. I'm kind of liking the talk in the TV box thing. I like the TV set idea. But if somebody could, yeah, make Pat make something that looks cooler or slicker, I would totally use it. 100%. Yeah, but it has to look good. This was actually drawn by a professional artist who did it in like 10 minutes, but it would have to look good. Like, if you sent me that, please make sure it looks good. Because it took me a long time to get good avatars. But yeah, totally. If you guys get me on Twitter or something like that. Charles Burns, man, fuck, Black Hole. I would love that. That's crazy. And he used to work with Art Spiegelman. In that comic, what was it called? Raw? Back in the 80s? Yeah, totally. If you guys made, yeah, totally send me stuff and I'll use it. I'll use different ones. It's just nobody ever makes fan art for me. I want fan art. I can't believe the Pat avatar doesn't have more fan art. Please send me fan art and I will use it in the videos and I will use your avatars. 100%. Just send them to me on Twitter. If my Twitter is @Vamion, VAMEON, you have to follow me, but I'll follow you back so we can DM each other. And you can send me any of this fan art that you want. So 100%. But thank you for watching the first episode of Please Rewind Live. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a new thing. Yeah, there you go. We got Quarter in here too. It's a new thing. The hope is to get guests on the show. I would like to have a sidekick at some point. I would hope to have Blood Money on this more. That's the idea. This content having more of this free form where, and I would later in the show, I'd like this to be reacting to trailers and making fun of Collider videos. I think some of the best content on my channel is when I attack Supergirl or Superwoman, whatever that bitch's name was, or Hassan Minaj. I think reacting more to people's videos and making fun of other YouTubers. Like when I reacted to Patrick's video, I would like to do more content like that. Which is kind of like what EFAP does, but I was doing that stuff a few years ago. I'd like to go back to that a little bit, and I'm hoping Please Rewind Live can turn into a really solid base for the future of the channel while I still make videos on the side. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Episode 2, hopefully we'll have Cordery on as my first guest, and me and him are just going to talk about being filmmakers, because he's also an independent filmmaker, and being YouTubers and what we think about the state of YouTube, and probably have a whole discussion about Ridley Scott. I would love to shit on Ridley Scott with him. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you for the next episode, whenever the fuck that's gonna be.